welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Inside Track. We've got fantastic guests on today. We're going to welcome back Glen Thurgod. How are you, Glen?
I'm very well, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. And Will and Jack, all three of you guys from Wellonomics and Training Shed. So welcome aboard. And then obviously always here with me is my trusty sidekick, Glenda Rivoallan. How are you, Glenda?
Very good, thank you. Really excited to have the guys on. All of you together is a real treat.
Absolutely.
I'm really looking forward to this.
This one may take some time because we usually do a bit of an intro into who you guys are. So it might be worth. Let's start with Jack. So because you've not been on before, Jack, do you want to give us a quick rundown of who Jack is, what you've done in the past, and how you sort of come to where we are
now? Yeah, can do. I've got a bit of a varied background. When I was very young, I used to be into horse racing. So when I was small, I tried to or wanted to be a jockey. So wow. I went to get my amateur license out in that. So that was fun. Did that. Had my first ride probably when I was about 16 years old. But that was always in conflict because I also played rugby as well. So one stage I was trying to stay as light as possible. And then the other stage, people like Glenn, who was my strength and conditioning coach, was trying to get me as big as possible as well. So
Ambulatory with muscles, is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, back then I don't think I had my growth spurt until I was about 18. So
I was horse as well.
Well, yeah. It's safe to say I never won any races. So and then from there I went into, obviously I started focusing on rugby a little bit more. Met Glenn at my at the rugby club I was at. Unfortunately, I had a bit of a injury there. So I had a blood clot in my brain. I don't know what that was from, a bit of a freak accident or something that just happened. And off the back of that, I really kind of started focusing on my strength and conditioning and got my qualifications there. Got back to rugby, and then unfortunately the rugby club I was at collapsed and went on no further. So I went back to my amateur club there. But then from there, that was really when my relationship with Glenn properly started. After that, after meeting him at the rugby club, decided to open a training shed, which Glenn had already had one in Market Harborough. So myself and Will, I know Will from school, we decided to open a training shed, and that's where the whole relationship with Glenn, Will, the training shed, and then eventually Wellonomics started from there. So that was just a bit of my background and how I got into the whole industry. Brilliant,
thanks, Jack. I mean, we'll come on to the Wellonomics stuff in a minute because I think that's the main focus of today. But Will, do you want to run us through your background?
Yeah, can do. So, like Jack said, we went to school together. So, Christ, I don't know how many years it's been.
You weren't a jockey.
I wasn't a jockey. No, definitely not. No, absolutely not. But so yeah, I was always sort of fairly sporty at school, and then went off to university. Did what a lot of people did at university. Probably got a lot less active. Became a sort of beer swilling, kebab eating hooligan for a couple of years, I guess. And then decided after uni I was going to sort of get myself back in shape. Work wise, sort of after I'd come out of university, I tried to start a couple of other businesses up before, a couple of sort of like one-man band things. Never really sort of got any traction with what I was doing. Never was really kind of like passionate enough about what I was doing. And like I said, I got myself back in shape, and I sort of fell back in love with fitness. I got myself in really good shape, and it was one of those where, lots of sort of friends and family first started asking me, you've got yourself back in really good shape. Can you help me? And I started helping other people. And I was like, you know what, this is something that I'm really passionate about and I like and I'm quite good at. So, I want to take this seriously as a career. And it was kind of sort of at that time, Jack and I had both sort of been away doing other careers, and we both moved back to Warwickshire where we live. And we started training together, just, in our free time. And that is when we decided, we should set up a gym and go into this profession. Then Jack obviously introduced me to Glen. It was like, Glen's got this thing going on with Training Shed, and things we can get involved with it. And that was 2014, and here we are today.
Wow. Okay, brilliant. And finally, and obviously not last, but Glen, most of us know you by now, but let's go through your career history and let's do it anyway.
Yeah, ex-failed athlete, should have gone to Olympics, got broken foot, end of that. Decided not to be a ski jumper because I stood at the top, looked down. So that was the end of my Winter Olympics. And then kind of worked in the city for a few years, which I hated because I didn't like being in an office in all the London advertising agencies. Started a personal training business, was quite successful in London, worked with loads of cool people, training people in the Blue Peter Garden, all the BBC presenters and stuff, which was very cool. Actually, one of my claim to fame is that I used to train Gordon the Gopher for all the old people out there. And funnily enough, I had dinner with him on Monday in London at the BAFTA restaurant. So we're still good friends today, which is great. But yeah, I just had a real kind of eclectic group of people. Tried to scale a business, which is impossible when you've got the premises. Got bored of that. Then went back to professional sports, spent 10 years working under people like Sven-Goran Eriksson, Dean Richards, Neil Back, and, rugby people, which is obviously where I met Jack. My first introduction was this is Jack. He's had a brain injury. Please don't kill him. So that was my introduction to Jack. My one to Will wasn't as bad as that, but obviously we've known each other now for like 9 years or so. I think we've probably nearly gone under twice with the Training Shed. Just put that one out there right now on record. But do you know what? We have always found a way. And these two are like, it's the other way. Oh, that was a bit confusing, whichever way that goes. But they're like brothers to me. We're best mates. We've been through the ringer. We had a business with a Training Shed that was about to scale with 4 sites, £1 million business. Prior to pandemic, and I'll put this one on record because few people have heard this story, but we met with our accountant probably 4 weeks before COVID. Will booked a trip to Cancun in Mexico. Jack booked a trip to the New York. I booked an Austrian ski trip. Unfortunately, I'm the only one that made it. I still feel guilty about that today, but these two didn't get on their holiday. I did. I came back. These two met me and were like, guys, we've got to close. This COVID thing does not look good. And then I can't really remember what's happened after that because it's just been constant day in, day out. But we have found ourselves in a position now where we have 3 businesses. We've got a bit of an announcement to make on your podcast today, which we've kept secret.
Superb. Love those.
But we'll leave that for later because you'll understand the journey of that. But yeah, effectively, we've ended up with 3 businesses. We've had to pivot like a ballerina on pre-workout is what we always say. But, essentially, it's been rough. It's been good. It's been exciting. We're still only getting started. But what we do now and how we basically support people in their well-being is so much more than what we very first set out to do. And that makes me immensely proud of our journey. Yeah. And I know that we're only just getting started again, which can be hard when you feel like you've already made it and we're about to scale and do 10 training sheds a year. But I wouldn't do it any other way. And certainly with these two beside me, I think we can conquer anything, if I'm being honest. So, yeah.
Ryan, do you mind me saying to the listeners out there that I had the absolute pleasure of meeting the guys at independent gyms? And obviously, as someone that's been an operator in the industry and likes to remind myself about how truly passionate I am about the health club industry, even although I'm much more in the wellbeing space now. The passion that these guys have got for our industry, and something that really resonated with me when I met you guys, apart from that grit, determination and resilience that you've had to have in bucket loads for what has been the most difficult period we've ever seen in our lifetime in this industry. What I love most, Ryan, which I want to get into with the guys today, is obviously they're on a wellbeing journey as well, but they really understand how our fitness industry has got a huge opportunity to progress much more and take on board the wellness opportunity that's out there, because we haven't done that brilliantly well as a sector yet. And I think post-COVID, that's something that all our listeners out there who have got fitness clubs might benefit from this conversation today. So it's a total privilege to have these guys on.
It's unusual, isn't it, as well, to have a group of people that do both sides of it. There tends to be very much wellness, and that's what they do, corporate wellness, or it tends to be a fitness side. It's unusual to get a group of people that do all of it together, and obviously very well. So I guess probably the best place to start before we dive really in depth into the wellness side of it is, do you want to talk us through a little bit more about the sort of Wellonomics and how, obviously, what that company is and what you guys do?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll take this bit and then feel free to jump in, Jack and Will. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking. But essentially, we've been asked to be the health and fitness kind of partner of Wellonomics prior to the pandemic. And we've been contacted by three great guys, Graham Wheeler, Steve Dean and Peter Yates Round, who had a huge background in the motor trade. And one of the things they used to talk about was that they were trying to solve this problem with Wellonomics. So just put it out there, we didn't found Wellonomics. We are the founding people going forward to Wellonomics and the way that the product has shifted. But effectively, they came up with this idea. They were trying to get rid of the annual staff survey, which, and again, you know our backgrounds. We're not corporate people. So we have no experience of this, and certainly in a performance setting from sports, which is obviously where I know Jack, and obviously running your own business, you kind of tend not to do this annual staff survey. So when we found out about this thing, we were like, well, that just doesn't make sense. What a load of rubbish. Asking people once a year how they feel about stuff is, well, you might as well not bother. And then when we found out there were other things at play where people were kind of, what should we say, incentivized to give positive answers, it was just like, what is this nonsense? So these guys came up with this idea with Wellonomics, and they went off to Silicon Valley, would you believe, to kind of, litmus test it. And the people in Silicon Valley were like, what are you doing? No one wants this. I mean, this is unbelievable. This is like 5-6 years ago. So they came back and kind of developed it and got it to this point. And what they did with all their research is they found that essentially pre-pandemic, the big problems were people's health and fitness and their sleep. And so they sought us out as a kind of, health and fitness body and experts, and said, look, this is what we're seeing in our data. We want to provide solutions to help these people be better. And then the data gets better. And we were like, well, yeah, sure, we can do that. That's great. And it was kind of that realization that, hang on, we can be more than just the four walls of our facilities. So, and we'd already started working with Acushnet, which is Titus and Footjoy, who we still work with today. We have a mini facility in their European headquarters. We have a 76% engagement at the place. And I was down at the Tech Health Summit thing last Monday with Phil Horton and Dave and all that lot. And Phil sort of said to me, yeah, but how many people actually use it? 76%. I went, no, 76% use the facility. And he was like, oh my God, that's amazing. I said, exactly. So we'd always said that corporate was the way to go. We'd already started working with corporates, and we had a facility in a corporate. And I remember sitting with Dave Wright and Stalker and Rachel Young and everybody at a My Zone U event over in Lincoln years ago. Didn't we, Jack? We sat around the table and we were just like, we're going corporate. How do we help more people? And that's how we always think about stuff. How do we help more people? I tell you what, if they're not going to come to our four walls and our box, then we've got to somehow go to them. We're fortunate enough that we managed to get one of our four wall box things into one of the European headquarters. But how do you help more people? Tech wasn't quite there yet. The Wellonomics product was kind of simple to a point, certainly compared to what Jack's developed it into now as our amazing chief product officer. But effectively, how do we get to more people? And, fundamentally for us, this Wellonomics thing, pre-pandemic, we said, this thing looks good. We like this a lot. What could we do to it? And then during the pandemic, whilst we're closing 2 gyms down and unfortunately having to say goodbye to 24 staff, which none of us want to go through that again, ever. But it was pandemic and everybody, was very, very kind and supportive to us as well. But we had to do that. And while we're doing that, we're trying to develop Wellonomics. And we're going, right, well, how do we make this product go? And that's the amazing journey I think that we've gone on. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without these two. But Wellonomics now has developed into this product that is a monthly check-in. And essentially we support people in all sorts of sorts of areas, whether it's physical well-being, mental well-being, and work well-being. And that's probably the time for Jack to come in, because he's the Chief Product Officer, and he can tell us a bit more about everything that we do, because it's amazing. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think at the moment, especially in the well-being in the corporate space, it seems to be very reactive at the moment. Any solutions that are in, and it's trying to make it as proactive as possible. I think with Wellonomics, we're trying to make the well-being strategy. We believe that well-being strategy should really be in the built into and integrated into the culture of the company. So we're trying to personalize it as much for that company as possible. So for the company, what are your goals going forward, or your well-being goals going forward? What evidence you have, really? So that's where Wellonomics comes in with. This is the data that we're going to be collecting and passing back to that company, and then using that, what can the company do moving forward? So creating some small goals that they can achieve and move forward. And with Wellonomics, there's kind of two areas really. You got the employer side that I've just said, the DNA, the data that we're collecting, so they can really embed that into the culture and say, right, people are struggling here, and here. It might be sleep or activity, nutrition, whatever it might be, stress. Okay, we've got that data. What can we do to help our employees that way? But also we have the app side of it, which goes out to the employees, which we call the world of Wellonomics, which is a kind of safe, secure place that people can explore their own personal health and well-being. I think it's it's got everything in one place. It's easy for people to find. They can do it at the comfort of their own house, and it's not so much going.
Sorry, Jack. What sort of things are we looking at on the app for the individuals? Are we looking at?
Yeah, so there's lots of different categories in there. So once you go through and do so Glen's just showing it there. So at the bottom there, you can see we've got different categories. So anxiety, finance, fitness, health, hormones, meditation, mindfulness, nutrition. So everything to do with a holistic look at your own personal health and well-being. There's trackers in there as well, so you can track your mood, sleep. And this is all from a personal side. So this is all for the employees there. We do have, like Glen said, a monthly check-in. I think one of the big things for companies is collecting relevant data on how people are feeling. Well-being's fluid, we know that. So doing an annual survey never really made sense to us.
We used to have them at Marriott when I worked for Marriott. I mean, obviously, it's a huge organisation, so I can understand why they did it, but it was very much probably less about wellness and more about how they felt about working for the company.
I think it's vanity metrics, isn't it? You just want people to tell you that you're great, so that you can tell everybody else that you're great. But
we used to find it was more a measure of the manager than how the staff felt.
Exactly.
So, and that's what it became. So quite often you were sort of going, well, don't put on there anything that you wouldn't say to me normally, and it was one of those.
The key with Wellonomics is that it's anonymous as well, and that's the most important thing, is so that people feel safe, because people always worry that people are spying on them, or that something's going to come back as a retribution because I said this about so and so and whatever. And people are very guarded these days. And I mean, if there's anything about teams, is the number one thing, whether it's a sports team. I mean, Christ, if they don't communicate properly, you're not going to win anything. But it's the same with companies, isn't it? And communication is probably one of our key strengths, which is how we've managed to get through what we've got, what we've done. So,
guys, can I open up the conversation a little here? Because I know that you're aware that I'm very passionate about the digital health space. I do a lot of consultancy in this space. And we know, and it might be quite helpful to share, we've been doing a huge amount of research over the last few weeks with bringing in global wellbeing leads from around the world to find out exactly, where it's moved to and what their expectations are. And I know that we're all on the same page here, that it's a very, very crowded market. 500,000 apps now on the App Store in wellbeing, 90,000 mental health apps. we know we've got some seriously big players, and there's a lot of noise. And what really shone through a lot of the work that we've been doing is that gone are the days, and they are truly gone, where these companies are going to invest money in a solution to tick a box. They now want the solution that actually physically does what it says on the tin, right? Now, we know that in the app market, there is variable engagement of apps. I just want to make it clear that I am a fan of them, because even if you got 8% engagement, which is not actually terrible, we've seen engagement as low as 2%. It's still 8% more of the population in a corporate that you are getting to than if you didn't have it at all. So I guess what I wanted to ask you is, what is it about Wellonomics that's going to drive engagement and connection, because it's critically important? And the other thing that I'm just fascinated by, because you mentioned the data, but this is also slowing up the purchasing cycle for a lot of corporates, because they're freaking out about who owns the data. So I'm curious to know if you're putting the data privacy and ownership in the hands of the consumer. Do they own the data, or does the company own the data? And what is it about Wellonomics that just makes it stand out from the noise that's out there? Could you share a wee bit more on that with us?
Mm-hmm. Who wants to, Glen or me? I don't mind.
Yeah, you go for it, Jack.
Yeah. So with like we said, we've come from, at the moment, Glenda, you said there's a lot of noise out there at the moment, and you can get a piece of information here, you can get it from here, and that's why I think with wellbeing especially, we want to work with the companies to integrate it into their culture as much as possible. So I think that's what's going to really drive engagement. You can have as many apps as you want and implement whatever strategies you want into the company, but as a company, whatever solution you're working with, if that communication isn't getting across to your employees about, you know, why you're doing it, being transparent, what, you know, why we're doing it, what we're trying to do at our organization, and how we're going to filter this out down to everyone. Because I guess, especially when you get to larger organizations, someone at C-suite level is definitely going to have a lot of differences to someone that might be working in the factory. So how do you get the message across to everyone that's in that organization? I think, for me personally, I think it just comes down to communication within that organization. And with Wellonomics, we help collect that data so that company can really personalize it to their organization. I think you said a tick box exercise. I think quite a few of these things at the moment are just that. So it's, oh, you know, these guys are doing it over here, so we better implement it here as well to show that we're doing that as well, rather than actually looking at it and saying, like I said before, what are our goals? Here's the data that we're getting fed back to us. So let's take that data and communicate that out to the organization of why we're doing this and how we're going to achieve it. And I think that's the big question, and that's the thing that we're still trying to work out with Wellonomics as well. But yeah,
I think that's what's really
communication.
Yeah, I think that's what's really exciting for you guys, because personalization is going to definitely separate you in the market from many other providers. And we know that the corporate organizations are absolutely now understanding the need for personalization. The other thing that I think is really interesting, maybe pick Glen up on this one, see if he can give us a bit more insight, because I think it's brilliant to hear that you're joining the dots on the wider wellbeing strategy, because it's not a solution that should stand alone. Hence why corporates out there that are worried about engagement need to understand that even at a low engagement, it's not the only solution. It's a part of a jigsaw. And I think that I'm really interested to hear a bit more, Glen, about how you join the dots of the encompassing wellbeing strategy in corporate organizations, and how you're working with HR leads and wellbeing leads to really understand how the app can drive the full strategy. Could you give us a wee bit more on that?
Yeah, well, I'll start with some stats because that's always good. But our engagement rate is between 44 to 97%. So with apps, I mean, I agree with you, Glenda, wholeheartedly, and so does Will and Jack, because we talk about it. If you can help one person, that's better than no people. So start with a small thing. Every step starts with every journey starts with a step, etc. Just let's not always shoot for up here and miss. And so from our point of view, that's what we believe. However, if our engagement levels are, trust me, the 44 does annoy us. If our engagement levels are below 50, we kind of get a bit personally upset about that, because it's like, why are we not helping people? How do we help people? You know, and that goes back to the gym industry side of stuff, is 15%, 15%. That's all I've ever bloody heard. And, you know, it's not changed. So surely we need to do something different. And, you know, different isn't always better, but better is always different. And all of those things that we say to ourselves. So from our point of view, you know, 26% is generally accepted as good engagement. Well, we're double that almost. So at our lowest level. So from our point of view, how do we do that? Well, it's because it's the personalized journey. It's because we work with the HR people, because let's be honest, if you've ever met an HRD or an HRM at the moment, they are pretty stressed because there are a gazillion things kicking off in the world. Anything from, you know, cost of living crisis to COVID to the war in Russia and Ukraine, you know, with those guys doing what they're doing. And it affects everybody, and it affects everybody in different ways. And some people are resilient enough to, you know, plow on, and others aren't. And you've got to support the weakest member of your team. It's what the SAS do. It's, you know, it's kind of, that's what we have to do. We have to provide people with as many tools as possible for us to be able to support them in their well-being. Because, you know, if the team is functioning properly, and I was watching a World Cup thing, I'm a bit of a football fan, so I watched the World Cup thing this morning about how to win a World Cup, and Iniesta, who basically was completely broken because of the death of one of his footballing teammates when he was at a junior club, and it played all the way through to the 2000 and I think it was 10 World Cup when they won it. And effectively, lo and behold, he ends up scoring the winning goal in the World Cup final. I mean, unbelievable journey and story. But that guy was broken, and his team rallied around him and basically supported him and did all that stuff. And that's what you have to do when you're in a team, whether it's a company or a sports team. So engagement is paramount. So supporting HRDs and HRMs and helping them to understand what they're trying to fix from a well-being point of view is our first and foremost, you know, journey. So Peter Yates Round, who's one of our founding directors, he's the one that's left out of the three of the original three, but he spent a lot of time doing some stuff with SEI, which was his consultancy business. And, you know, one of the questions that they came up with, which we asked, was, are you happy to come to work? I mean, that's a simple question, isn't it? So, you know, asking that question, you get a yes or a no. And if it's a no, guess what? You've got a problem and you need to do something about it. And when you start thinking about HRM and HRD language, and what they start looking at is presenteeism, retention, you know, quiet quitting, which is the new one. I mean, I'm sure there'll be a new term coming up soon as well, but, you know, something to do with the World Cup, I should imagine. But effectively, if you're not happy going to work, you as an employer, of which we are employers, you've got a problem. And it might not manifest itself immediately, but it could take 6 months. And everybody knows that the general stat is, you know, somebody leaves a business, it costs you 35 grand, you know, in additional cost to, you know, let that person go, move on, and then hire up and, you know, and train somebody else up. But if you're in a company that's got 1,000 people and you've got 10% turnover, that's a serious amount of money that you're losing every year for one simple reason, that you don't understand your people. And that's what Wellonomics does, is it helps you to understand how people are feeling and thinking, and also where they might need the help. And then the expertise from the world of Wellonomics is where we can supply that help for you.
And I think that's what's really sorry, Jack.
Well, just quickly on that, I think, and that's where the point we made earlier of using that data, and you're becoming proactive then in your wellbeing strategy rather than reactive. You know, putting something in that at the moment, I probably would say that a lot of the wellbeing solutions just seem like a bit of a bolt on. Yeah. So a company would just bolt something on and they just say, well, we'll have this. And I think that's why you see such poor engagement. one, like I said, communication, it probably doesn't get out to the wider organisation of why they're doing it. Two, it feels like a bit of a bolt-on. And three, it's a little bit reactive and probably a bit too late.
I think that what you guys have beautifully demonstrated, it's totally music to my ears as well. I get quite excited by this. Sorry, Ryan, if it sounds like I'm getting overly excited, but I love the idea of a wellbeing app that goes beyond the initial product, right? So, Glenn, you mentioned well-being at the individual level, and then you talk about it at the team level, and then you talk about it at the organizational level, and that's what corporates do want to now see. So what really interests me there is when you obviously bring that data back, which is critically important, and data-driven insights are definitely going to be where we're heading. So in terms of getting insights, can you just give us a little flavour of the type of things that are then accessible that move beyond the app? So is it webinars? Is it leadership training? What's the type of opportunity that then exists once you feed back that data with the experts that you've got in the platform? I think that corporates out there would be really interested to hear that.
Well, all of that you've just listed and more. I mean, Will, do you want to?
I was going to say, so you've got the two sides of it. Like Jack's kind of largely been speaking about, when the individual employees complete their monthly check-ins, they get access to all the support, from the wellbeing system, whether it's sleep, or whatever their check-ins are reporting back to them. That's where they'll get the support. Moving over to the more corporate side is when the employers get that monthly report, which is all based on aggregated, anonymous data, which is what helps with the engagement, because we're creating that safe space for the individual employees who feel like they can be honest in their answers, and they're not going to get criticised, and they know that ultimately it's going to help contribute towards the benefit of their workplace. So once the management start getting those monthly reports, that will give them feedback on what we refer to as KWIs, key wellbeing indicators. Forgive me if I get this wrong, guys, but I think we've got 13 key WIs. Yeah, still got it. I don't have a lot of it involved.
Normally locked in a cupboard doing contracts and stuff. Really kidding.
But what management will get a report on those KWIs. So it will give them feedback on the general sentiment of the business. So they'll be able to see whether, what percentage of their business feel like they're being collaborated with, or whether communication is good, and then all the other sort of general health and well-being indicators. Now, from there, the additional services that are available are, so we work with people to deliver the things that you talked about, Glenda, leadership programs. We've got a performance change management expert who can come in and then deliver that. And, we'll be working on, developing that digitally, but at the moment they can go in and do that physically in-house with companies. So that's super helpful for the employers.
Thank you, guys. I think that's really insightful, and very excited to see that journey unfold. So I want to just put a bit of challenge out there then. I love that idea of KWIs, key wellbeing indicators, right? It's about time wellbeing was in the boardroom, right? Mm-hmm. So where have we gone wrong? And Ryan, you and I talk about this a lot. Why have we still not got the voice that it really needs? And what do we need to do as a wellbeing collective for people to really understand that this is more important than the technical processes? Because if the lights are on and nobody's home, right? Our presenteeism is well on the rise. How do we get this to the top of the importance list on the strategic priorities that these companies are putting first? Because if I just blow everybody's bubble a little bit, we've been quite stunned at the size of the wellbeing budgets. There's still anything as little as being respectful to the person that mentioned this. We were made aware of a hugely well-known financial firm that you would all know immediately, where for 16,000 employees, the budget for wellbeing in total, not just for an app, was 14,000. So we're seeing budgets anywhere from 10 grand to 100, with the average budget in an SME at 10 grand and an average budget in a large organisation right now at 30. Total spend, not just for an app. So how do we get this driven up the agenda?
Well, first of all, we can beat that. We've had one very well-known, I'm not even going to give any clues because you'll all guess, but they give people trainers.
The wellbeing budget.
Yeah, I mean, blew my head off that much. My glasses fell off. But
I like that.
It really is. It's crazy because, you know, buy me a pair of trainers, I might be happy, but buy someone else.
Yeah, but Glenn, we've got to take responsibility for the fact that I know we understand wellbeing so highly unregulated, right? We know from a professional perspective, we're not always seen like the doctor or the cardiologist or the physio, right? But with the incredible impact that we have in people's lives, where have we went wrong? What can we do as a wellbeing collective to raise its agenda to where it needs to go?
It's proof. It's data. Which
I agree with that.
So data and proof and case studies and just good conversations and this is why we got involved with Wellonomics. And like I said, you know, I didn't really finish the story, but we basically just asked Wellonomics whether we should all get together and be all part of the same business. I mean, that's literally how we've ended up with Wellonomics. And we now work with Peter. Peter's the only surviving, original director. But, you know, we are on a joint mission to try and get this to the forefront. Take away all of Lewis Hamilton's backroom people. And what I mean by that is mechanics, right? Nutritionists, you know, strategic people, all of the people that make that guy drive fast around the track. Take them away, what happens to him? You'll be lucky if he gets off the start line. And that is what we're on about. And it's very, for us, and we, you know, it's not frustration, but we can just see the opportunity because this is how professional sports teams work. And, you know, that's what, you know, that's how me and Jack know each other. And by the way, we didn't lose a game that season, did we, Jack? Whether it was first team, second team, or cup game, whatever it was. And that's the point, is you've got to be consistent with your approach, but you've also got to understand what you're doing. It's very easy in sports teams is to go, okay, well, we didn't win this week, so we need to improve. You know, and in a financial model point of view, it might be that you didn't hit your KPIs because they seem to get everywhere, don't they? So what drives your KPIs? Well, guess what? It's your KWIs. It's like, come on, this is just so simple. And you hear all these quotes all the time, you know, health is wealth and you can't buy your health when you're lying on your bed and all this sort of stuff. It's like, come on, we know it's not that we're not saying anything new, by the way, but what we're trying to do is just to kind of legitimize it a little bit more with data. Because if you can have those conversations with statistical things and, you know, look, we, the three of us, we all came up with the wellbeing score, which is the big talk of the fitness industry at the moment. Well, guess what? That's a tiny bit of what Wellonomics does.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, and I think that we've all got to take a message from this about the importance of proof of concept, right? We do so much amazing work, not just in the wellbeing industry, but the fitness industry. And Ryan, I know you were super vocal about this during the pandemic, that we maybe never got the support that we got because we don't have the people whose lives got changed telling the stories, like Glenn said. We don't collate enough data in our facilities to show the difference we make.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think, I mean, when you just look at the fitness industry and what we don't do, I think we spend so much time trying to sell memberships as such rather than actually collect the data and prove what we actually do really, really well. I'm with Glenn on the fact this 15% figure is nonsense, because I think it might be 15% of people who have a gym membership, but how many people run, row, cycle, play sport, all that? I mean, you're probably upwards of the 40, 50, even probably higher in terms of how many people are active, just not members of a gym. And I think we sit in this little bubble as a fitness industry and go, we are the health of the nation. And it's just like, well, we're not really. We're a small part of a greater thing. And wellness, all of this that we're talking about today, comes into it as well. So yes, fitness plays a part in it, and it can help get people fit and healthy. But yes, so can the apps. Obviously, there's stuff you guys are doing on your Wellonomics and the True Connection, all these different things. That's people training from home and doing their own things. And there's so much more to making people healthy and better and more productive at work. And I think things like Wellonomics, what it does is put the responsibility back on the employer. Because I think sometimes what we do is we either go, oh, the health and fitness industry need to do it, or the government need to do it. And you're sort of going, actually, one, governments will never do it. And I think we need to get this out of our heads. And especially as a fitness industry, we need to stop going with our begging bowl. We need some money. We need some VAT. We need whatever. It ain't going to happen for the simple reason being is that governments will never see the benefit. So if Rishi Sunak spent 10 billion now, suddenly putting in a thing to reduce obesity and drive wellness and everything else, he would never see the benefit of it because let's be honest, he won't be in power in 2 years' time. Or even if he is, he certainly won't be there in 7. So his governments will never see the benefit of a long-term strategy. So they're never going to invest in it. So let's stop worrying about government and let's actually go into the places where we can actually make an impact. And where do we spend most of our time? It's either at home or it's at work. We spend an hour a day at the gym, maybe 2 if that's your thing. But generally, we don't spend a huge amount of time at the gym. So really, the gyms facilitate an exercise. But in actual fact, the people that can facilitate massive change are the work. Because that's where a lot, I mean, I sit at home, as you can see. But most of us go to work. Most people go to work. And that's where, and then I think things like Wellonomics, when you've got an end-to-end thing, so you're working with the leaders to implement a plan, you're giving the company an ability to go, okay, where do we need to make change and provide them the opportunity for change. And then what you do to the employee is go, okay, you're not feeling that great or you're in this position. Here's the solutions for that as well. So you've got a solution for the company, a solution for the individual, hopefully, and that drives the wellness forward.
Ryan, I love that point because I always talk about dual responsibility, and I think the challenge that you've got with some of these solutions, they either go after the employee or the employer, and actually it's about both coming together, and it's dual responsibility. The employer is 100% responsible for developing an environment and a culture that actually has well-being as a priority, but it's also the employee's responsibility to do what they can to be the best version of themselves and bring their best to their work. So when these two come together, I think that you've got something there that could be really exciting. And guys, something that I just wanted to ask you a little bit more on, because again, our research is telling us that HR are welcoming and wellbeing leads, which are still rare, but on the rise, are really welcoming the support, because I do feel sorry for some of these guys. They have been handed well-being, having never had a history in it. And I know that every man and their dog who had a little breakthrough during COVID decided they were going to be a well-being expert on LinkedIn or on Facebook. And it's quite dangerous because, as we rightfully know, well-being is extremely complicated and it's not a one-size-fits-all. And it's very much not a cookie-cutter approach. And I really think you'd be banging on an open door here if we can support the people who have got well-being as their responsibility, because it's a big ask. We are looking at people who have not had any formal education in it, hence why, guys, I'm passionate and brought well-being qualifications into the industry, because we need more education. So can you give us a wee bit of an idea of how you can support people out there that are driving their wellbeing agenda and really are open to your type of support? What kind of stuff that you would do there?
Well, we always say, obviously, Wellonomics isn't an expert in anything, essentially. Obviously, we have our backgrounds, but we want to put forward that Wellonomics isn't an expert in anything. The people that we work with are true experts in that area. So whether it's, like we said, sleep, anxiety, activity, nutrition, whatever it might be. So we, in the world of Wellonomics, have that platform where people can get all the information, or employees can get all the information they need within the world of Wellonomics. And we really try and focus on that and drive that. So companies can support their employees by giving them access to this world of Wellonomics. yes, we do the monthly check-in, which is going to help personalize that world to that employee, but we almost kind of call it a bit of a byproduct. The byproduct off of the back of that is the data that we feed back to that company. So, and the data we feed back, we try and make it as easy to understand and implement as possible, working alongside, like Will said, the performance change managers and the experts in those fields. So if you do have a sleep issue, we can work with an expert to come up with a strategy. So it's connecting those HR managers, people that are putting the communication out in the organization, with true experts in their certain field. And that comes down to, this whole thing of, we want to collaborate with as many people as possible. It's not, oh, we don't want to do this because we're working with someone else and it might benefit them. It's more, Wellonomics isn't an expert in anything. We are just there to almost like facilitate and say, we're going to, like you say, connect the dots, but work with the people that are going to get the best outcome for those HR managers. So it's a bit hand-holding, a bit of guidance, but then also using data that is going to help companies build that,
Really
the
that.
wellbeing strategy.
Yeah.
So it's not just, like we said, a bolt on. It's not an afterthought. It's not, here's £15, go and join a gym.
It's a great insight.
For some people, it's great, but how many people really in that organization are taking you up on that?
Yeah.
Or how many people aren't going because they have other issues? They might have mental well-being. They're nervous about going into the gym. They don't feel like they can. There's a whole host of other things that come into the well-being. It's not just physical well-being, but we know physical well-being is a huge driver in mental well-being and work well-being. So
guys, the fact that you've been collating lots of data, what would you say? And I'm going to actually ask you to put your flag to the mast here. So on everything that you've seen in the last 6 months, what would you say are the top 3 challenges that corporates are facing right now out of the 13 well-being indicators? What would you say is the top 3 that we're all facing as a generic theme?
Sleep.
Agreed.
Sleep
I've
is
seen that everywhere.
Yeah,
What's
sleep
that?
is yeah, well, exactly. There you go. And if you've got kids as well, you might be able to give a bit of insight into that. But yeah, sleep is huge. And look, and this is the thing. This is what we do. We connect the data to say that this drives this, drives this, drives this. But effectively, try not sleeping and then try and be brilliant. It's just the two things don't go together. Not for very long, anyway. And then that has a knock-on effect on everything else. Communication, because we're in this situation where we're a fully remote company. We got good communication thanks to Will. He sets up good scrum meetings, and we have pulses, and we have all that stuff that you need, because I can't just holler over the wall and go, what was that you just said, Will? And join in a conversation. So we communicate exceptionally well, and that's all thanks to Will's our CFO stroke COO, but that's how we operate, and we know that we'd have to adapt and do things differently. Yeah. And so communication is a huge thing. And I think, moving forward from there, I mean, I don't know if one of you two want to offer up another one, but I mean, effectively sleep and communication are huge. There's nothing else that really comes too much.
Yeah. I mean, I think with our data, we, at the moment, we obviously have the monthly check-in, which is the KWIs, which we say that's the data, the top level stuff that we pass on to the companies. Like Will said, it's all completely anonymous, but it's in those simple KWIs. The secondary data that we get is probably of often something that's forgotten about, but it's something that we massively focus on as well. And this is secondary data that we feed back to companies as well. And that takes into consideration lots of different things. So, are people working from home, different areas? Glenda, we've spoken before about finding out different postcodes, if they're different there, gender, age, all different things that are going to affect that top line data as well. So under there, there's lots of stuff. Stress is a huge one, reducing anxiety and different things like that, which is that there's lots of different reasons why people might be suffering there, but we can really almost like pigeonhole it into, because we have these 3 different areas. We have mental well-being, physical well-being, and work well-being. And that secondary data really supports what we see in each 3 of those areas.
Yeah, I think
that's a huge one.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to bring Jack in, because it's the secondary data that really helps you to understand. Because it's really quite binary, isn't it? If you say, right, well, so how's the communication in your entire workforce? Okay, so who is my workforce? How old are they? What's the gender balance? What's the Ukraine-Russian conflict absolutely did not play out well with youngsters, because it's the first thing they've seen. And let's be honest, we're talking about the I don't want to call them the S word, but those guys. Right, because they're just different. We don't need to always label people with stuff, but they react differently, and it's that thing. Look, I'm 45. I didn't know anything about the Second World War apart from what I watch on Netflix or movies. Right, so I don't have any recollection of all of that sort of stuff, and I've been very fortunate. Been brought up in the 80s and the 90s, probably the best period that you could ever expect, where everybody was happy and healthy, and well, that's what I remember anyway. So the youngsters coming out of COVID, university debt, and not having a same sort of, and then coming straight out of that, into oh my God, I think it's going to be World War III. That's where their brains went. And there was this massive kind of like resilience piece there with the youngsters who'd never experienced, and they've just gone, I mean, what an upbringing that is. Well done, guys, you've left school, now go off to university. Oh, COVID's here. And now it looks like it's going to be a huge conflict. Whereas the older people were just like, nah, it'll be fine.
It's funny, Glenn, you've opened up something there that I wanted to raise with you guys because of my passion for resilience. And please give me that little bit of a plug, because I think the danger in well-being, and I'm going to be really controversial here, and I'm going to value saying this because I know you guys are very like me. We get your true authenticity, and that's what we're looking for, right? Because this is a conversation I think needs to be had. We are at risk, though, of everybody thinking they can have it all. They can not have to work an 8-hour day. They can have, the fanciest car, the biggest house, be completely and utterly thriving, have amazing sleep, high energy. We can just have it all with slightly less pressure put on us than ever before. And the sad reality about life is it doesn't work like that. And I think that we're in danger in well-being of allowing people to show up when they've not given it their best, for whatever reason that is. And sometimes we're having this approach now, oh yeah, let's have a cuddle, poor you. And I think that what we've seen is people become less resilient. And we understand that organisations have got a massive responsibility to develop culture that's for thriving. But we see organisations who do all of that and the employees not coming to the table. And I think that's really important, that these conversations have to be had, because that's why I say it's about dual responsibility, yeah? We're in it as the employee, and so is the employer. And if it helps, just a bit of insight, with all the resilience work that we're doing right now, what's fascinating is we talk about the decline in mental health, but a bit like, I always love Tony Robbins' comment about where movement flows, energy flows, because mental health starts with the physical. And what's really amazing is, in terms of our boundaries, we're not always good at setting good boundaries. We didn't get taught it at school. Our healthy consumption is declined, like who's drinking water on a regular basis and doing the right thing by their nutrition. Their physical activity, we've never been more sedentary, and our sleep is awful. And I want to go back to Glenn's point. When we work with people who are very much drained of resilience, a lot of it, we are seeing that the biggest gap is the energy pillar. And if your energy is not right, your future focus can't be on point. Your inner drive, your belief in yourself and your motivation wanes. Your flexible thinking, your ability to be really super positive goes, and your relationships suffer. And they're the 5 pillars of resilience, but it starts with energy. And our basic energy is a serious issue. And people are turning up day in, day out, whether that's in the fitness industry or other direct corporate organizations, poor sleep, having no physical activity, not eating right, with poor boundaries.
Yeah. And
I just wondered if we're not helping with all these fluffy posts every day, that we're starting to see where we're actually saying it's okay to be mediocre. And I know that that's controversial, but I'd love to just pick your brains on that. Because we're at danger of just allowing mediocrity to be all right.
Yeah, I think, Glenn, you can go into the wellbeing score.
Well, no,
I think with the
Carol.
I guess this was like the secondary data as well, Glenda, with you're talking about resilience, and obviously stress comes into that. It's that secondary data. Obviously, we know a certain amount of stress or pressure is great so that you can thrive on that. But then it's working out from that data, where's the tipping point where, okay, stress and pressure of whatever's going on at work or home, where's that tipping people over the edge? And it's working out that fine balance of, okay, what's too much pressure and stress, and then what's the right amount. And I think from that secondary data that we can collect, we can really start diving into that and work out, right, have I got the right amount of pressure at work or stress at work that's allowing me to do well at work, thrive, and my productivity is great and I'm energetic when I go into work. And then what's tipping people over the edge and saying, right, this is too much, and actually we're seeing a decline in productivity and all that sort of stuff.
And I think that you make a beautiful point, because the link between pressure, stress and resilience is like a continuum. And if you've got too much pressure and too much stress, the last thing you want to do is go then and have a workout. We take away the very things that sustain us, we pull them out because we're already drained in energy. And it's funny because it's that vicious cycle, what comes first, but they're both connected, because we're seeing such poor energy in those sub pillars. So we see it everywhere. People with poor sleep, people not having any physical activity. And I know we're all on the same page, but we were born to move.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just going to add to that by saying, I think there's two simple things that we've forgotten. And that's, we should be redefining happiness and balance. And I think that for me, that's the key, is that, and this is, I think, what you're alluding to really, Glenda, is all the social media pressures and keeping up with the bloody Kardashians or whatever that show's called and all this sort of stuff. I mean, it's just unrealistic. Totally unrealistic. And when you speak to your niece or your nephew and you say, what do you want to be when you're older, and they say a YouTuber, I literally just die inside. I'm like, please, it's there's some benefits to it. It is now a career that you can do, but realistically, that's not what I want for my family members and stuff. And I think we're just getting carried away with a lot of this materialistic stuff. And we talk. Speaking to a potential customer the other day, and it was like, right, well, how do you get your high engagement? It's like, well, because we work with people that care, and that's the redefining. People always say, oh, what's your ICP? What's your ideal customer profile?
Yeah,
people that care, because if you care about your employees and you show that you care, then they will actually feel that you care and then actually start to care about themselves. And the engagement thing is like, well, why do they do it? And it's like that whole thing about getting to psychology of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. It's like, how do they do it? There's so many other platforms out there which will remain nameless that use extrinsic motivation, monetary rewards to get you to engage in your well-being. That to me again is another that you should engage in your own well-being journey because you want to be better and you want to make a difference. And I think that's what we do very well, is that we land with the right customers, because if you don't care, we don't want to work with you. Simple as that. But fundamentally, it's getting people to care about themselves, understand what makes them happy, because a new car makes you happy for, I'm just going to shut the window because the dustbin lorry's outside. Benefits of working from home, not. But effectively, if you care about yourself, then you engage in your own well-being journey. And like Jack was saying, physical drives mental, drives work well-being. However, not always. And so if you have to come in at it from the mental well-being side because you just really don't feel like you care enough about yourself to engage in that physical well-being journey and look at your nutrition and your sleep and all that stuff, then that's where you should start your well-being journey. But both of those two affect your work well-being journey. So if you care as an employer, you really should be providing everything that you possibly can to make that everybody's engaged in a well-being journey of sorts that is relevant to them, so that they can be better and that they care about themselves. And that was what makes you happy, surely.
It's getting those the fundamental, the foundations right as well, which we haven't really spoken much about the well-being score, but that was on our physical well-being side. The amount of people that they go into improving their physical well-being don't get the fundamental foundation things right, and we've got data on that through the well-being score. But the amount of people that don't drink enough water, that aren't getting the right amount of fruit and veg, that aren't doing the right amount of activity, NHS guidelines, but when they come to you, they might want to train because I want to run this marathon or do this, and actually you haven't even got the foundations in place. And I think that comes across from all of it, work well-being, physical well-being, and mental well-being.
I think you're absolutely right. Guys, just in the spirit of time, I just want to sort of summarize what I'm getting from today, and I think it's mega powerful. I think that one of the things that's jumped out for me is the importance of KYC, not KYC, know your customer. What about KYE, know your employee? And I think that you've demonstrated to us beautifully that that's going to be what separates solutions from the noise, because it's about supporting organisations to know their employees. The second thing that I think we're all saying collectively is the importance of that relationship, that the employer has to come to the table with good intention for a culture for thriving, and what does that look like? And also the employee needs to come with good intention that they're going to buy in. And I think that's really important. And I just want to say what I love about you guys is you are everything that I believe well-being should be, which is about education, about engaging and empowering, most importantly. And I think by the sounds of Ryan, what the guys have done with Wellonomics is it's empowering the employee to take responsibility for the journey that they go on, not you demanding what they then consume. And I think that's going to be a bit of a deal breaker in a positive way. And I hope I've summed that up, guys.
Absolutely. And just on a very, very quick one then, guys, in terms of where you guys are going from here, you're doing some incredible work. I mean, Glen summarised it really well there. Where's Wellonomics going from here? And I mean, obviously you've got the 3 businesses. What's the future looking like?
Busy. We've got lots of stuff going on. I mean, we haven't got just one announcement, we've got 2, but
you said you'd an announcement.
One of our announcements is that obviously, look, we've pivoted throughout the pandemic like you wouldn't believe, and we're not even going to touch on a third business that we have called MyOp, which is doing great stuff within the NHS. However, Training Shed and Wellonomics are basically going to become Wellonomics. So there you go. Heard it here first. But wow. we understand the importance of what we are now trying to do, and actually the relevance of how we can go about and achieve it. So physical well-being is still absolutely 100%, where we come from. But we also understand that we are part of the well-being jigsaw. Mm-hmm. And so to have that conversation and to make that difference could be a bit confusing if you're like, well, who are you, Training Shed, or are you Wellonomics? We are now Wellonomics, okay? And over the next few months, and so Training Shed will always exist. The Training Shed will just be one of the health and fitness experts within Wellonomics. But from now on, whenever you introduce any one of us, you won't have to say Training Shed and Wellonomics. But we are just going to be Wellonomics.
We like simple on this podcast, don't we, Ryan?
Well, we're very simple. Glenda. And then the second announcement is that, look, we will be at the Independent Gyms Conference. I had a great chat with Rob the other day. And look, we've done it in the NHS with a wellbeing score, okay? We tested an NHS trust and they came back worse than the national average scores. And I always talk about it. You've got the unfit looking after the unwell. Well, guess what? In our industry, and we're talking about the gym industry where we originate from, it is tough. It is not all rosy. It is not all full memberships. It is, there are some independent gym people out there that are struggling. And so what we want to do is we want to support the independent gym people and beyond. So we'll support everybody, because everybody's everybody. But as we're talking about independent gyms, that's what I'm talking about. But we'll support the big ones as well. But we want to support the people that work in the industry, and we want to open up our our product Wellonomics for those people to support the staff that they have there, whether they're freelance instructors or whatever else. So we've got some special offers and rates and deals for them to take on Wellonomics so that they can look after their staff too. Because if we end up with the same situation that we do in the NHS, well, look what's happening to the NHS. And I think we understand that the physical sector has a huge part to play in this wellbeing jigsaw, and we need to support everybody. So we're from the industry. We are now part of a different sort of industry, but also I think that if we can bring the relevance of physical activity through to health and well-being, then I think we'll be in a much better space.
And what we'll do, we'll put all your contact details. If anybody does want to get in touch with Glen, Jack, or Will, all those contact details will be at the end, including their LinkedIn and so on. So just give those guys a shout. I can't thank you guys enough for coming on. It's been absolutely fascinating. I mean, obviously, this is more Glenda's field, the resilience and wellness, than it is necessarily mine. So it's always interesting to learn. I always learn on things like this. So fantastic. Thank you very much for coming on. Really appreciate your time. Obviously, we will always keep getting you guys back because there's always something of interest, different slide to the business or whatever that you guys are up to. So I'm sure we'll see you on probably series 4, 5, 6, and 7. You never know how it goes. But we appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will catch you soon.
Yeah, guys, thank you.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Cheers. Thank you so much for all your inspired work. We need people like you pushing the envelope, guys. So thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll do our best.